In what is probably the most unsurprising news to come out of Disney Lucasfilm land, Star Wars The Acolyte canceled. Will not get a second season on Disney Plus, and that caused all Darth Plagueis speculators to shed a single tear in their comic book rooms. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video with Swagahans, and in this video we need to talk about this cancellation, highlight some of the interesting aspects to this story, and also do a little bit of a market report and give ourselves a reminder that this is the name of the game when it comes to comic book speculation. The risk of cancellation is always on the table. But of course, before I get into it, if you guys could like, comment, subscribe, I would appreciate it. Helps support the channel doing those things. But let us get into this video here today. Now, I already did the comic book Instagram post highlight. I'll just kind of read it for you guys here so we can do our due diligence. Star Wars The Acolyte will not be moving forward with the second season, so that Darth Plagueis tease was for nothing. And we all could have used more scenes of Manny Jacinto with a lightsaber. All the details we've got in the link in our bio. And there you see the GIFs and the comments. You know, without going too much into detail, I think you guys can already get the impression that most people reacting to this are actually happy about it. It didn't really feel like this show had many fans. In fact, it probably had more people who hate watched the show or actually just watched it, for the train wreck that it was, than actual people that really, really liked it. Now, again, I can't comment on the quality of the show. I've certainly seen clips, but I myself just was not motivated to watch it. But I did think that this was interesting here over on the Deadline article talking about this show being canceled. One of the things that they point out is the drop-off in viewership. And I wanted to kind of talk about that because this mirrors a lot of what goes on in modern comic publishing. Driven by interest in the venerable space franchise, The Acolyte got off to a strong start when it launched June 4th with 2 episodes generating 4.8 million views in its first day on the streamer to rank as the biggest series premiere on Disney Plus this year. The tally rose to 11.1 million views globally after 5 days of streaming. Corroborating Disney's data, the series made its debut on Nielsen's top 10 original charts in its premiere week at number 7, 488 million minutes viewed, climbing to number 6 the following week. I think that, again, the big start to it has a lot to do with all of the PR around the show, both positive and negative. The Acolyte could not sustain the momentum, dropping out of the top 10 in week 3 and staying off before returning to number 10 after the release of the finale, believed to be the lowest for the Star Wars season finale. So this show started off really, really strong, a lot of people watching it, and then they saw what it was and immediately tuned out. I mean, at the end of the day, the numbers are the numbers, and if people are not watching your show, you're definitely going to get canceled. Even Netflix has a policy for their TV series where I believe that it is if 50% of people who watch the first episode don't finish the season, then it's an automatic cancellation. So it doesn't matter what they think of the show. It doesn't matter what the reviews are. If you just don't have people watching it, then they're automatically going to cancel it. And this is kind of the world we live in, with the big data tech world of doing things. I've had so many rants talking about why I think big tech and data ruins entertainment more so than wokeness, which, again, I know that by doing this video, I'm going to have a lot of comments saying, go woke, go broke. I get it. But that is really the issue here, is that everything is data driven. Everything is looked at in terms of numbers. And, even for myself as doing a YouTube channel, I know how much click-through rate matters, watch time, all this stuff. So I understand that when you extrapolate that out to a big corporation like Disney, they really, really do care about this stuff, even though I think that that is antithetical to what actually makes for a good show. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to have a memorandum for all of the people that bought Star Wars The Return of Tag and Blink #2, first appearance of Darth Plagueis. If you guys remember, when the show came out and we got the tease that perhaps the Darth Plagueis, who is, of course, the Sith Lord before Emperor Palpatine, did I ever tell you the story of Darth Plagueis? That part from the prequel trilogy, made his comic book debut in this particular book right here. And this is one that got really hot, on the heels of that show. Now, again, was this one of those books that was ever really going to take you to the moon? I mean, I'm showing you guys some of the previous sales here. I mean, look at this. Upwards of $50. Now, I don't really remember what this book was selling for before. Let's scroll all the way down here to see. I think that at certain times this had been a $10 book, here's for the 2 copies, $30 right there. So here you go. Someone was able to get the 2 sets for $10 right there before the show. So this is one that climbed up tremendously. You started to get slash price of $29, $21 there, $22 there, a 9/8 sale at $3.50, which again, I have some of the 9/8s pulled up right here. And you can see there was a few people off the heels of the show instantly bought the 9/8 $200, then it rose up slash price $350, then it rose up slash price $400. And now those people have themselves a book where they're never going to see the character, presumably, that they were excited to have the book for show up on their Disney Plus streaming service in the future. And that really is the main point of the video, right? That's the risk of speculation. There is no guarantee that any of this is going to hold up the value or increase in value when we get those characters in the future. Now, here on the channel, I like to talk about this stuff. I like to cover this stuff. I myself don't actually speculate all that much. I've said it many times. All I do is go out in the wild, I enjoy the hunt, and if I find stuff that I see being sold at discount, then if I like it, I'll probably pick it up. But I am not under any illusion that if I buy a book like Star Wars Tag and Brink #2, that when Darth Plagueis shows up on the screen, that all of a sudden my book's going to be 3x. I mean, sometimes it does, of course, when you get like Doctor Doom books and things like that. But generally speaking, it's not every book that pops off. It's kind of the random ones that do. So, it's such a gamble when you approach comic collecting that way, although, it's also a fun. I mean, people go to, casinos for a reason. It's a lot of fun for a lot of people. And I can certainly understand the appeal of it. And I guess, at the end of the day, it still can be a cool book. Again, I say this all the time. Whatever happens on the screen has nothing to do with your appreciation of the comic book itself. Nothing will take away the fact that this is still the first time we see Darth Plagueis inside of a comic book. And if that's cool to you and you're happy with this book, that's great. I mean, that's definitely the reason to get it. And this is probably going to be a book now that, if you're somebody who actually wants this thing, now might be a great time to pick it up, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people trying to dump their books, in the wake of this news. Obviously, this was already one that was kind of tapering off, where, the last auction, as recently as August 4th, only sold for $16. So this is the way, that these things go. This is the name of the game. When things are hot, they sell for $50. When things are not hot, well, nobody remembers anymore, and you can get them at auction for cheap. How long before these listings of $30 here or the slash price of $32 with the best offer end up selling for $15 or $10? Here's a new listing right here of somebody being like, oh, canceled show, better list my book, get this thing out of the collection. Here's another new listing here. This person's trying to capitalize at $84. So there you have it, guys. This is the risk that we take when we all buy books related to movies and speculation. I realize it's a lot of fun, but it's definitely not the best approach for your comic collecting goals or needs. This is something that reminded me of, some of the leftover Star Wars stuff that is relevant, because what's going on with, Star Wars comic land? Obviously, Ahsoka had her TV show. She actually is going to be getting a second season. Now, will this book be getting second life? It's really hard to say. We have 1,834 universal copies on the census. 9/8s have 636. And check this out, guys. We have officially dropped underneath the $1,000 price point for the 9/8s of this book. You can see the last few sales: $913, $923, $1,100, $913. So this is a book that continues to hemorrhage down, down, down. Red Knight's going down. Look at that. 912. 30-day moving, 918. And again, this was a book that at the height in July of 2021 sold for $3,600 in a 9/8. Now, if you go all the way back to 2019, this was a $350 book. Then it kind of jumped up in 2020 to $581 and then $700. So we're not quite there. But, May 2020, this was already a $1,000 book, and now we are below that price point. If you kind of, calculate the cost of inflation and stuff, I mean, we're definitely below that of what this book was selling for in 2020. I mean, it's pretty crazy how much that this thing has fallen off. And the problem with this type of book is, again, it got so hot that everyone who had it was motivated to send it in for grading and then motivated to sell it, because the values were too much. I mean, if you had this book and you bought it, for $300 in 2019, and you could have sold it for $3,600. I mean, hell, if you could have even sold it for $2,000. I mean, why wouldn't you have? If you're somebody who's not, super emotionally attached to Ahsoka. And I guess I'll end a little bit of the video talking a bit about, Star Wars The Acolyte and some of the drama and wokeness and all of the issues that came into the show. I think that this stuff is very interesting. Sometimes I think that it gets really overblown, all of the culture war stuff when it comes to pop culture entertainment. I mean, I do think that there are certain points that are poignant that some of the commentators make, but at the same time, I think that they're simplifying a lot of the aspects of the filmmaking process. I do actually think that it's clear that with a lot of these franchises, they have to sort of go back to basics. And one of the problems with growth and being a victim of your own success is that you do eventually sort of lose yourself, you lose your audience, you lose, the target that you're going for with a lot of your shows. I mean, I always think about it this way. Let me give you guys a little bit of an anecdote. Let's say you're somebody who wants to write a comic book, and you have a very clear vision of what your comic book is. And you're like, I want to make the most gory, badass, John Wick style shoot 'em up comic book that I can possibly make. And you make it. And it's very, very graphic, and you get the NC-17 rating on it. It's definitely not meant for kids. But in doing such a bold choice of what you want to do with your story, you find that market. The people who really like that thing were like, man, this is the comic book I've been searching for. This is the one that I've been wanting to get. And those people buy it up. And they buy up the second one. And they buy up the third one. And then they tell their two friends, like, hey, I don't know if you've ever seen this violent, gory stuff, but hey, check this thing out. And their two friends come in, and they check it out, and they like it. And then their two friends come in, they check it out, and they like it. And actually, your super niche, very gory, violent John Wick style action comic book gets really, really popular and starts to expand its audience. And it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And more people start to look at it, to the point where eventually you have people going, hey, this thing is kind of violent. I think that you should tone it down. We have kids reading your stuff now. And so you do just that. And you take out a little bit of the decapitation. You're like, oh, okay, maybe we don't really need this violent scene. We can get away with doing some other type of violence that people approve. And then someone else complains, and they're like, hey, this is still a lot of blood. And you're like, okay, well, maybe we can sort of start to take away the blood, but we can still have, bullets being shot at these people. And that tends to be the beginning of the end for the thing that you set out trying to do. You are all of a sudden so successful and so popular, and you have to continue to grow and expand your audience, that you eventually forget what it is that your original audience wanted out of your product. It gets diluted out there, and you have to cater to the general audiences and the biggest market possible. And the product gets watered down overall. Again, I will refer to the Steve Jobs quote. If you guys just look it up, look up Steve Jobs and Xerox, and that'll explain to you everything you need to know about life, entertainment, capitalism, and the cyclical nature of all this stuff. But I digress with that, We'll table that talking point for a later video. Here I think Star Wars expanded, tried to be too much, tried to be all sorts of things, and probably lost a little bit of its way, as far as what it wants to be, what it should cater to. Just go back to the basics. And with the cancellation of this show, I think that it is very, very clear that they're just going to need to go back to basics and try to figure out where they go in the future. And if you're a comic book collector, just go back to basics. If you're a speculator, buy what you like, because you never know if Darth Plagueis is going to get canceled on a streaming service. Anyways, that's all for this video. That was me doing a little bit of a market report on Star Wars books and covering this story. What did you guys think about this show overall? Did you watch it? Did you like it? Did you buy any of the books? Are you reading current Star Wars comic books right now? What's your fandom like for Star Wars comic collecting? Let me know in the comments. Anyways, thanks so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. See you on the next video.